So, DeeNug, how does it make you feel? So, I don't know if you got all the ahead of the curves while you were playing, but that's a ahead of the curve is a raiding achievement in World of Warcraft that is for finishing the raid while it's relevant, and then the raid sticks around for all of the like armor and the weapons and the mounts and things. But there is a unique achievement that kind of fades, and that achievement has a reward to it, and so that kind of fades. And so, like, I don't know if you missed any of those, but how do you feel when there's something you don't get because you came to Final Fantasy late? So, for example, you've missed a ton of seasonal rewards and things like that, where because the seasonal rewards they don't come back like they do in WoW, so you can't go back. As opposed to WoW, they'll add like 3 pets with the Children's Day, and then it takes 3 years to get those pets. They intend for you to repeat the seasonal event.
So like in World of Warcraft, sorry, like that was like I mentioned, all I did was raid, and so our standard as a guild was we had to get ahead of the curve. So in Final Fantasy XIV equivalent, it would probably be when Echo comes out, you would no longer be able to get that achievement. So similarly to World of Warcraft, like once the bosses get nerfed or like we get that 10% buff, no one can get that achievement anymore. And there's like a title and like I think one tier there was like a mount like locked to it. So it drove us to like, so like our guild, like we were just like, we have to get ahead of the curve. That was the thing that motivated us. And there was a point where once we couldn't get ahead of the curve, I think in Siege of Orgrimmar, we just said, we're not raiding anymore. Like we just stopped doing it because they were like, what's the point now? It was like, because now everyone's gonna, it was a really bad atmosphere, but they were just like, well, if we've lost out on this, now there's no point until like the next like tier like comes out. Yeah. I know. I think it's one of those things where, like, for me, I don't know how to describe it. Like, for some people, like exclusivity, I guess, is like or missing, or like for fear of missing exclusivity is a driving force. And again, it does like tie into what Brian was saying about like time, because if you don't have the time to be able to do it, do you want to even attempt it? Because I know now, looking back at it, if I was to like look for one of those guilds now, and they say, we have to get all of this time invested to get ahead of the curve before it's gone, like, let's do it, I'd be like, there's no chance in hell. Like, I'm going to be able to commit to that time.
I like aspirational content. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of exclusivity. What I will tell you is, like, if I was going to do it anyway, it's like, oh, cool, maybe that'll change it from I was going to do it in 3 months to I'll do it in 2, because that gets me ahead of, when the event ends or whatever. So, like, it might alter my behavior, but it's not going to drive it. Exclusivity, like, if you're like, well, if you don't do this, you won't get it. All right. Like, and I don't know if that's just something that comes with age, or that just comes with once you've missed it enough times and you realize, like, hey, I didn't use Facebook for a month, and not only did my life not fall apart, but my life got better. And so, like,
that's actually
like,
that's a really good point.
Like, I got off the train and they told me my life would fall apart, and it actually got better. And so they encourage you to, well, what if I quit other things too? I'm really good at quitting things now. And so like, I don't need it. I can just be me, and like, you be you, and that's great. But like, I love aspirational content. I love that the ultimates are protected. I've never set foot in one. But I love that if I ever get to that level, now, like, I've cleared E 9, 10, 11, and we'll be scheduling 12 soon. And like, once I clear 12, in my head, I'm like, should I try an ultimate? And like, the fact that that's been protected and set aside for me, I love that. I love the Palace of the Dead titles, even though I've never attempted one. So like, aspirational content for me is about saying we're not saying only this many people can get it. Like, the titles to me personally, the titles tied to Ishgard Restoration, it's like, they don't mean anything. But if they'd said, can you get this many points in this many days, that would have appealed to me. Like, okay, the timer starts, on the first of every month, and if you can get this many points within a month, that's something where it's like, I might have said, okay, well, let me find a month that I have a lot of time, and I'll go for it. And that title will be tied to something that I can aspire to, but is not like, oh, we arbitrarily set a line, and if you don't jump above it, you don't get the reward.
I think it's a very clever, like, what do you call it, marketing, I guess, almost from like from a company's point of view, because if you put things that are locked behind this, like, you can only get this during this time, it almost forces people, in like quotation marks, forces people to do that content ASAP. Because I know because I think talking about Destiny 2, didn't they vault raids, and is it Leviathan?
The Leviathan, like all the year 1 content, the DLC as well.
And that summer, I started playing, and that's when I saw like a massive, like, the directory is not an accurate reflection of like the game itself, but being someone who looks and just like scouts through games, that was the most I've ever seen anyone play Destiny 2. Like during that period of time before the fear of missing out drove everyone to come back to Destiny 2 because they were like, I want to get these lines before they're gone forever. I want to let's try this raid before it's gone forever. So like from a human and consumer point of view, like it can sometimes be a bit like, I don't know, like almost manipulative, but it works in the company's favor, right?
Yeah,
so yeah,
and my whole point is like I think it works a handful of times, and at some point, like you're gonna get people off that train because all of a sudden you start seeing the hamster wheel in that regards. Because it's like, okay, it's my concern is it's manufactured. You had to be there moments when what people really crave is actual. You had to be there moments. So in a way, 14 has already kind of undergone something like this with 1.0 to 2.0. Now there were like actual ramifications and reasons behind it. New engine, like this is what we've got to do to really turn this game around. So like that is a, I would say that that's kind of a different category, exceptionally rare. 14 seems to be an exception in that case of doing something like this, but it told a story that built up, and like the Great Gubu Wall, and you had, you're fighting Nail Van Darnus, and all of these things happened, and that time was rewarded. That gear transferred into this game. It wasn't like all that got deleted and you started over level 1. So there wasn't this hard, like if you don't do this, like, however, like I am appreciative of being there and as a part of that, and you can't go back and experience that. So we've had those experiences within it. And so
Unreal is gated. Unreals are vaulted.
Right. Unreals are another example within the 14 space. But the theory is that come back, right? Just like with the 15 event is
Disney
coming
Vault.
back. Yeah, Disney vaulted, as opposed to like, you'll never get to experience this unless you're in it. And that creates, I think, that does create drive. But I think it only creates drive free. At some point, somebody gets tired of that drive, right?
It at least creates focus, right? And so if you have 20 people interested in Unreals and you have 20 Unreals, what are the odds they can form a party? If you have 20 people interested in Unreals and you say this is the Unreal of the day, okay, let's get some groups formed. It wasn't the Unreal I wanted to do, but I do want to do Unreals. Let's do this one. And so it does at least home them in. And so, with the Garo, it's like, well, I want to do PvP eventually. I want to do PvE. And then the problem in 14 is, what are the odds there's enough people doing PvP on any one day to drop the queue times down? And it spirals out of control. Queue times are long, so nobody does it. Nobody does it, so queue times are long. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. By doing something like the Garo event, you say, here's a bunch of people who said they want to do PvP eventually. Let's say now is the time. And so it at least focuses those people in. There's still a number of people that are like, yeah, I'm just not doing that. But they weren't going to do it anyway. And so there was nothing there to focus.
I muted. So I'll redo this real dramatically. So speaking of focus, D, what is your focus as we build to Endwalker? What are your goals and what are your hopes and I guess aspirations as we step into this next chapter of the game?
Like what I want to do and have completed prior to going into Endwalker, or I want from Endwalker. Okay, cool. So like I was mentioning beforehand, this is my first expansion playing, right, Shadowbringers, but I still came at it like guns blazing, just solely doing raiding content. So I've cleared the tier. Ultimate was always something, and I feel like maybe Ultimate and Savage for a lot of people is kind of this what's this word, like enigma, like this fear of stepping into it, like everyone, there'll always be an excuse. I remember telling myself, like, when I wanted to get raiding in this expansion, I don't want to do Savage straight away because all the professionals are doing it, so I'll give it like 2-3 months. And then 2-3 months went by, and then I thought, I don't want to do it now because then everyone's going to know the tactics and expect me to know the tactics. And then I kept delaying it on and on and on. So I was going to do the same thing for Ultimate. I was going to be like, the new Ultimate will come out in 6.1, and then I'll try it then. Whereas I told myself now I want to see if I can at least just step foot into it, see if I can get a clear in an Ultimate. So an Ultimate clear is on the cards, or potentially for me ideally. And then I was talking about this beforehand, just to get one of every relic weapon done. So one Zodiac, which I've done, one Heavensward, which I've done, Stormblood yet to do, and Shadowbringers I'm working through. And then I need to get the crafting or a Gatherer's version. Those are my big ones.
I have never finished a relic. I have a partial relic from like I have partial relics. Like I just have a bunch of started projects.
Sure.
Like where I'm like, but during Heavensward, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try this relic. I got some books, and they're like, hey, cool, you're gonna have to do about 1,000 more of those. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna do something else. And so then like Eureka, I made it to that step where I had the unique perspective of like 60% of the player base, we all quit at the same time. And so there was like it was like the second or third step where we all just kind of like fell off. And then Baldi's and Arsenal came out, and I was like, well, I would have done it if I'd known that was coming. Not because it was good, but because like I would have pushed through, because then there was this huge kind of lust for the fact that they got to do that. Mad respect.
So D, what are your hopes and expectations, or what are you really excited about with Endwalker? We've seen a lot of news already, and we're about to gear up for the next wave of more detailed focus information. The tentative date for like media tour stuff is September, which means we'd either by the end of September or early October start actually getting gameplay and impressions and things like that. What are you looking forward to the most?
So I said this beforehand, like I skipped through MSQ, but like, and I want to say like a year ago, towards the end of August last year, I started again, like from 1 all the way through, like watched all the cutscenes, read all the dialogue, did everything, and got super invested. Like this is the first game ever, so just like backstory, I've almost exclusively only played MMOs. So I was like a RuneScape baby, and then I was a MapleStory baby, and then I was World of Warcraft, and I was World of Warcraft for like 14 years, like from post-launch all the way through to BFA. And as soon as I left BFA, I was like dabbling in Destiny 2. I think Rift was like a thing also a bit.
Yeah,
like,
Rift kind of had a little spike there.
The WoW killer. Yeah, I know. Everything was the WoW killer for a bit.
Yeah. But even still, like I've even seen more people kind of returning to Rift. It's not really being actively developed, and I was like, I think if it would continued on, it had some really great ideas and systems. Yeah. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So like it was just like MMOs, and then I found Final Fantasy XIV, and again, I had the same approach to like all MMOs, which was just raiding PvE. So this game has made me appreciate story like 28 years later. Like I didn't care about stories, and like I remember vividly, I think it was 5.3 had just launched, and people were just like, I'm crying, like, oh, I'm so like this is too emotional. And I just put it together. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just a story. Like, there's nothing, like, it's just a game, is what I told these people. And then everyone was just like, okay, do the story. And so I went through the story, and there's like a 15-minute montage video of me just sobbing my way through 5.3 because I didn't think a game was ever capable of making me feel like this. Yeah. So like for me, it's the story. Like I want to know what happens, how they conclude, because I didn't realize this story has been going on for almost 14 years, right? They were saying this is like a big arc that's coming to an end come 6.1, and then we're going to get a new story. And so for me, I want to know how everything wraps up story-wise. I don't know if anyone's still laying out, so no spoilers, but just for me, that's my biggest priority. And then second is I'm a horrible one-trick. So I only played Astrologian. That was the only job that I played all the way throughout. And so hearing that they're like working on Ast or reworking Ast is like a fear for me, right? Because when I told you, is it Stormblood Ast was like, Stormblood Ast was the one where like, I think everyone looks at Stormblood Ast through rose-tinted glasses, because for me, it was the worst like playstyle. Like it was the best in terms of creativity. Like it made me like think more, but like in practice, you only did one thing. You fished for like a balance to spread, or like
like it was to power. Yeah, you were hunting for maybe 3 cards.
Card fishing.
Maybe,
exactly.
yeah.
And so like I learned that, and then I learned the way it was here, and I enjoyed the ability to be able to like flex, which meant I could just learn one healer because I could like jump around depending on who my co-healer was. But now I'm going to be just the regen healer. So which puts me in a position where I kind of have to learn a different job. So I'm looking at Sage, but I feel like everyone in their family are looking at Sage. So now I'm like, do I go Scholar? So for me, story, and then what they're going to do to Ast, and then I have to learn a new job. Those are the big things.
Yeah, and we give this advice out a lot, especially whenever your role is having a new job introduced. That means that entire role, all the jobs that fall into that role have a chance to radically change.
Yeah.
And so I have always said that we don't get 2 new jobs per expansion. We get 15 and then 17 and then 19. Like it's like they're rethinking it. Some jobs, minor adjustments. Some jobs, like, wow, that's completely different. And I've seen that, especially with Astrologian. We saw it heavily. Why am I drawing a blank on the job? It's up Machinist. We saw that job in Shadowbringers radically change. I really enjoyed the changes they made to that because I didn't like it. I think I went from Stormblood into Shadowbringers going like, oh yeah. So I was happy with that. But the nice thing about Sage, even if like you didn't want to be kind of a Sage, bandwagon fan, is that Sage for you would start at 70. And so it's not like, oh man, I got to go all the way back. I got to go like, sure. And if you don't want to do Sage and you do feel like leveling a healer and you did Astro, like you got to go check out, White Mage, you got to go check out Scholar, which you got plenty of time from then to now. But if you wait till the 19th of November, you might be like, I want to do this, but I've got to do all this other stuff to get caught back up to where I was.
True.